So you have to understand that what we need to do is control the number of active cases, because the next one could be symptomatic and serious, and therefore what the government is trying to do is to ensure that we never get to the stage where we have a serious case of COVID-19 by controlling every outbreak that we have. And really the increase in the numbers is what has led us to decide that we need to tighten down the rules again. We want to do this in a way that ensures that we prevent having to get to a lockdown situation again in the future. So everything we're doing now, however inconvenient, is designed to avoid even greater inconvenience in the future.
You were interviewed by BBC Radio 4 after Germany added Gibraltar to its list of travel warnings, and you downplayed somewhat the rise in COVID numbers here on the Rock. You said that there's no one in hospital, there's no one in the ICU, and in fact the large numbers coming out now are largely also down to the huge amounts that have been tested. Yet this reverse gear seems to tell a different story.
No, I'm afraid not. There is absolutely no contradiction. You've got to understand what it is that we're saying and why we're saying it. We're saying it in the context of the 100,000 per 100,000 head of population. The Gibraltar numbers may appear to be larger because Gibraltar has done more testing than just about everywhere else in the world. So in the context of travel bans and quarantine, everything has to be put in that context. In the Gibraltar context, which is where it is that we're talking about controlling the outbreak, you look directly at every single case and you try to contain each one of those cases. And as the numbers have increased, we want to ensure that we try and contain all of the cases so that we keep all of the numbers down.
As from tomorrow, people will need to wear masks in public covered spaces. Can you tell us what this means? What is a public space, and are there any exemptions?
So the public places will be the places where the public have access, the places where you are free to enter. And in those places what happens is that members of the public, strangers to each other, interact. And for that reason what we're trying to do is to ensure that people who in good faith, not knowing that they have COVID, not having been subject to a test because of the random testing, not feeling any of the symptoms which require that they should be tested, should not be in a place with COVID, which they're not aware of, with other people who might then contract the virus and who might indeed be immunosuppressed or maybe over the age of 70 and might take a turn for the worse. So what we want to do is to ensure in that way, with the new advice from the World Health Organization, and remember this is important, the World Health Organization itself is evolving its advice on the use of masks. We have followed the advice of Public Health Gibraltar to now impose this requirement of the use of masks in public places. Look, I hope this is going to last as little as possible. I hope that as we bring the numbers down, we might be able to reverse the use of masks, but this is a very difficult situation. People need to understand that. The government is not making this up as we go along. We're following the best advice that we have, which is the public health advice, but this is a new virus. Even now, although we better understand it, we still have to deal with this on the basis of the advice as it changes and as it develops.
Can you just clarify, does public space include schools?
So the Department of Education, working with the Teaching Union and Public Health Gibraltar, are ensuring that schools are dealt with in a way that is appropriate to each age range and in keeping with advice from Public Health Gibraltar and looking at the advice that's being given elsewhere around the world, in particular in the United Kingdom. So different schools might have a different approach taken, and if there is an outbreak in a particular area, in a particular school, a different rule might apply.
Will the government be issuing any advice as to what type of mask people should wear? Because it's not just a box-ticking exercise, is it, to avoid a fine? It is actually to keep COVID numbers down and stop the spread of the infection.
I think there's a lot of information out there about what masks to use, what masks not to use. The government itself will be adopting that advice and will be spreading its messaging on the use of masks in coming days so that people understand what it is that a mask does, how long a mask is useful for, how to maintain a mask if you've bought one, which is not a disposable one. All of that is something that we're going to have to become familiar with when we are in covered public spaces.
Lockdown was very tough for many over 70s. So what would you say to our viewers who are of that generation, who may be very worried now that you're issuing this advice to stay at home unless absolutely necessary?
Well, I would say they are right to be worried. Remember that we have a serious outbreak of COVID-19. COVID-19 is sometimes almost asymptomatic in the way that it affects people. but we have the evidence that the over 70s can be very severely affected by it, that the immunosuppressed can be very severely affected by it, and so they need to protect themselves. The best way to protect themselves is to ensure that they are not out and about getting in the way of the virus. We're not imposing a legal lockdown for their protection at this time, but we are strongly advising that they should stay home, that they should not socialize, that they should avoid going to any place where they might contract the virus. I know that the months in the spring when we had to lock people down of every age, the general lockdown, and also the over 70s lockdown was very uncomfortable. But look, we can look back on those days and realize that we have the success that we have been able to bank against that first round against the virus. The alternative is too horrible to think about.
Well, on the subject of testing, Chief Minister, this has been brought under the spotlight by this discrepancy between Gibraltar's University Laboratory and SynLab, UEFA's diagnostic service provider. We learned that there's a potential margin of error of between 25 to 30%. Has this undermined, do you think, confidence in our screening process?
It shouldn't undermine confidence in our screening process because you haven't found this out as a result of the UEFA test. This is what we've been telling you since we introduced the test. The UEFA test is a different test. It's for people who are going to be in very close quarters with each other. It's a diagnostic test, the test that we do, which is the same test that is done in public health in the United Kingdom. This test comes from Hampshire, and the same test that Kosovo did, because the same team did not show positive in the Kosovo test, is the test done by public health authorities in most of Western Europe. This is the test which is designed for a public health purpose. The UEFA test is designed for a different purpose, and therefore it's a diagnostic test. So look, this is the right way to do things. Have the confidence that we have banked success in the way that we've managed things since the spring using this test. We've found 50 plus cases of COVID-19 in Gibraltar at the moment. I think we're now at 43 or 44 because some others have recovered. Calculate that there may be more out there. Protect yourself. Stay home if you can. If you're over 70, definitely stay home, and don't lose any confidence in the work that is being done by Public Health and the Gibraltar Health Authority, which is excellent work, which has delivered the results that we've had until now, and realize that there are different tests for different things, and understand that there is a lot of science behind that.
Well, National Day celebrations have also been scaled back. No big screens, no fireworks. How can we find unity on such an important day?
The Gibraltarians have never needed fireworks, and they've never needed large screens in order to know what it is that unites us, in particular on National Day. On the 10th of September, that is the day that we recall the referendum of 1967, the choices that we've made as a people, the defense of our right to self-determination. These are the things that join us. Whilst I am Chief Minister, nobody will play with the right of the people of Gibraltar to determine their own future, to continue to be British for as long as we want. And look, frankly, if there's any suggestion that the people of Gibraltar are divided, I don't see it. I don't see the evidence of that. We might be divided on every subject under the sun on social media, but if there's one thing that unites us, if there's one reality that is Gibraltar, especially on the 10th of September, it's that is our day. Red, white and proud, red, white and free.
Chief Minister, we're speaking here in the Wessex Lounge. You're about to hop on a flight to the UK. Can you tell us more about that trip?
Well, I'm going to start the process of taking once again face-to-face discussions with colleagues in the Foreign Office in London as we prepare for the next rounds of discussions with the European Union, with Spain on the issues which relate to our economic deal with the European Union in the future. This is a difficult process. It's a complex process. You will have read, as will all your viewers, the difficulties that there are in the context of the discussions between the United Kingdom and Europe on the main UK-EU deal simpliciter. So this adds a complication to the discussions. There is a lot that Gibraltar can achieve in the context of the deal that we do as we leave the European Union and with our relationship with the European Union going forward, but it is devilishly complex and therefore it requires a lot of work.
No doubt you'll fill us in when you return. Can I just ask you one final question? There has been an awful lot of speculation about Gibraltar potentially being added to the UK's list of travellers that need to quarantine. Do you have any more information on that?
Look, those issues, as they are in Gibraltar, are really more scientific issues than they are political. Once a scientific decision is made, the politicians are wheeled out to announce it and to defend it. It's a matter exclusively for scientists in the United Kingdom. I know that they have from Gibraltar all of the evidence they need to understand how our numbers stand in the context of per 100,000 head of population, in the context of our testing per 100,000 head of population, and in the context of our success in taming the virus until now and ensuring that nobody is hospitalized, nobody is in ICU, and that nobody has passed away from the virus in Gibraltar to date, and let's hope we keep it that way.
Do you think you'll be making some representations on that issue again during this trip?
I don't think that people have realised that this is a daily issue. So Gibraltar is daily in contact with the United Kingdom through colleagues in the Foreign Office and colleagues even in Gibraltar in the convent to ensure that all of the data required is provided to the United Kingdom authorities to ensure that they're preparing for decision making, which is done usually on a Wednesday or a Thursday, announced late on a Thursday. This is a daily issue. So there's no need to make any representations this evening in the Foreign Office or tomorrow in the Foreign Office, because that is constantly being done by me and by other colleagues here.